Who brought the District Assembly's Common Fund concept? It was the NDC. We put it in the 1992 Constitution and said 5 to 8% of total government revenue should go directly to the districts for their development. So if you go to your district and the District Assembly has built a school, a KVIP, a nursery, a sports recreation, a community center, it is a social intervention of NDC that has produced that. Who introduced the GET Fund? It's Rawlings, NDC. We passed the GET Fund law. But for the GET Fund, where would our education be? Most of the educational infrastructure in this whole country is being provided through the GET Fund. And so how can you say we haven't introduced social intervention policies? But in any case, what is social intervention policy? Is an action or policy that provides social services or social benefits to the people. And so it's not only GET Fund and other things. We have provided more access to water than any other government in the history of this country. When Professor Mills came into government, access to clean drinking water was 58%. By the time we left office, access to clean drinking water was 76%. For Accra alone, we added 40 million more gallons of water. In 8 years, not 1 gallon has been added. And I hear the Ghana Water Company say, oh, Accra is overgrowing its supply of water. It's overgrowing its supply because in 8 years, you have not added a single gallon to it. You must plan and know what your population growth rate is. And you must continue to put in the capacity to bring in more water. And that's why I'm saying that we took water and brought it in from the northern direction of this country. And so Adenta and other places that had never gotten water for almost 15 years saw their taps flowing for the first time. Today, I'm sure your taps flow twice a week or something. If you don't store water, you will run short. And so we need to invest to bring more water supply, not only to Accra, but to all our growing communities around the country. And so if you are a government and you haven't invested in improving water, definitely access to people will be denied. We've extended electricity more than any government in the history of Ghana. Electricity is a public good. When electricity arrives in a community, it changes the lives of the people very rapidly. People can engage in small-scale enterprises. It was Rawlings who introduced the Rural Electrification Program and the National Electrification Program. And so today, when we say that Ghana has more than 80% access to electricity, it's because the NDC introduced those policies for us to be able to do so. So how can any person say that NDC has not introduced any social intervention? Even the NHIS. NDC started a pilot in Damango and Nkranza for the NHIS. Implementation started in President Kufuor's time. But what President Kufuor introduced was a mutual health insurance scheme. And so your card, your NHIS card, allowed you to access health services only in the district in which you were registered. Today's National Health Insurance Scheme was introduced by Professor Mills. He changed it from a mutual district insurance scheme to a national health insurance scheme so that your card could access health care anywhere in Ghana you go. And so I wonder what is giving these people this idea. You know, I can refer to free school uniforms and free sandals. The free school uniform policy was introduced by Professor Mills. I can refer to the free textbooks for basic schools. When Nana Jane, seated here, was minister, she came and met a situation where 3 children had access to 1 textbook. By the time she left office as minister, every child in basic education had access to 4 textbooks of their own. If that is not social intervention, I wonder what else is social intervention. Even let's take progressive free SHS. It's a policy, the free SHS. I launched the free SHS. And so you can't say that we have not had any social intervention. If you talk about the cocoa sector, our policy of free fertilizer and free cocoa inputs and free seedlings changed the lives of the cocoa farmers. And if you remember, when I was leaving office, we did almost 1 million tons of cocoa because of the policy that we had of giving these inputs to the farmers free. If that is not a social intervention, I wonder what else is. That argument must stop. And the point even is, these people have done more harm to social interventions than any other government in history. They capped the NHIS, and apart from that, they starved it of funds. And so most people with an NHIS card today cannot access health services. You go, you get a consultation, there are no drugs, not even analgesics. You go to hospitals and they say they won't accept the NHIS card because the NHIS is not refunding their claims. And it's not refunding their claims because this government has starved the NHIS of money. They've starved the District Assembly's Common Fund of money. The Constitution said 5% to 8%. We were giving district assemblies 7.5% of national revenue. When this government came, they reduced it to 5%. And the rest they are putting into the consolidated fund to spend at the center. And even the 5% does not come. If you go and ask any district secretary, he will tell you there is no money. They go begging the MPs to let them have access to the money in their district common fund accounts to be able to do even some of the basic things. And so this government is doing more. Get fund, decollateralize Get Fund, and spend the money in advance. So Get Fund is not able to continue the projects that it is undertaking because the fund has been collateralized. And so this government has done more harm to the existing social interventions than any other government in the history of the country. And so that is my take on that. And then you asked, have I exercised myself of the father for all, the father for all syndrome? My boss, my president, was a special person. He several times said he believed in looking forward and not looking into the past. And so I'm sure that people got away with some of the crimes that they had committed against the people. I became president 4 years later, after President Mills had done his 4 years. I mean, I came into office 5 months before the election. And so when I became president, it was going to be a bit difficult to be investigating things that happened in 2008. And so I said that, look, any allegations of corruption that are made against any public officer, I give the investigative agencies the free hand to investigate. And so I remember in those times, the National Service investigation, the JIDA scandal, people even forget that I was the one who commissioned the committee of inquiry into JIDA. And all the issues that came up, the report was presented to me as president, and I gave the report to the media. And that is referred back to me as my crime of condoning corruption. The fight against corruption begins with shining sunlight into an area, and that is what I sought to do. And so when we gave the JIDA report to you guys, it was referred to the Attorney General. And the Attorney General began to take action. Some of the people involved went to court to restrain the Attorney General, and the court processes took forever. There were others where there was prosecution of my own colleague and friend, Abu Gapele. The Attorney General put him before court, and he was jailed. It was recently that President Akufo-Addo granted him amnesty. And so their will to fight corruption was there. We even retrieved monies from some of those involved in JIDA. We retrieved as much as 50 million Ghana cedis at the time. And so the track record is there. And I can assure you, if you believe that I was imbued with the father for all syndrome, it has been exercised. And it's been exercised because it's a demand by the people of Ghana. The people of Ghana are asking for accountability. And we must create a situation where everybody who agrees to serve must know that he will be held accountable to the people. We can't afford to fail. We've seen some things that are happening in other countries. And let's not think that Ghana is immune from that. And I can tell you, our young people are getting frustrated and desperate. And if we don't take drastic action and we think that it's going to be business as usual, we will be shocked at what would happen in this country. And so, it's not my demand, it's not a threat, as Nana Jane said, it is a promise that will hold public officers accountable. And it's not going to be only post-regime accountability. It's easy to prosecute your political opponents when they've left office, but the difficult decision of dealing with your own people when they go wrong, it is what makes you pass the test of the fight against corruption. And we're going to hold our people accountable. And so, I've said it several times, if you get into trouble, I'm not going to be a clearing agent to clear you. If the investigative agencies catch up with you, you are on your own.
All right, sir.
And the appropriate sanctions will be taken. The issue of judges, I believe that our Constitution gives the judiciary certain privileges. They are the only arm of government that does not renew its mandates. They don't go for elections to be re-elected as judges, and they're given security of tenure. I think that the obligation and responsibility of every president is to appoint fair-minded people. Human beings, as we are, would have our own inclinations towards one party or towards one religion or towards one culture or other. There are many things that make us who we are. But the obligation on when you become a judge is to look at the cold, hard facts and rule based on that. Some of the pushback that we are seeing currently is the penchant by this president to pack the courts. And only recently, you've seen what happened. And I can't understand why the Chief Justice will be the one recommending, which judges to appoint. The Constitution is clear. That is the President who appoints judges in consultation with the advice of the Judicial Council. And so the initiative to appoint judges must come from the President and submitted to the Judicial Council. It brings it back with advice to the President, and the President forwards it to Parliament. That is the procedure. It is very weird that this time the recommendation comes from the Chief Justice to the President, and even the issue of capping the number of judges. The Constitutional Review Committee recommended that we cap Supreme Court judges at 15. And so the issue of capping the Supreme Court is not for the Chief Justice to say. We will resurrect the Constitutional Review process when I become President. And when we do that, we will put it to the Ghanaian people whether we should retain the 15, whether we should reduce it, or whether we should increase it. And so I don't think that should be the Chief Justice saying that we should increase and cap at 15. And even when she says, and cap at 20, and even when she says cap at 20, she has already recommended the 5 that will cap the 20.
Thank you.
And even bring it to 21. Because if you add that 5, it will go to 21. And so I think that we must, as much as possible, if you have the discretion, the President of this country has a lot of discretionary powers, but that discretionary power must be exercised with responsibility, and make sure that when you are appointing people onto the judiciary, which has security of tenure until they reach 65 or 70 or whatever age is recommended, you cannot remove them unless for stated reason. And so in appointing people to such powerful positions where they are the arbiter of whatever happens in this country, we must make sure that we use a criteria of fair-minded people who can put their prejudices aside and be able to judge fairly, because they are the last resort when disputes occur. And so I think that that is the... I was speaking in Elubo when I made the statement that I made. And that statement was in 2016. And it was made to justify why I deserved a second term in office. And I believe that at that time we had made significant steps in terms of stabilizing the economy, in terms of infrastructure development. We had brought the Etuabo gas processing plant on stream. We had been faced with a crippling energy crisis. We had turned it around. By 2016, we had stabilized the power situation. We had worked hard to bring 2 new oil blocks on stream, which increased the volumes of our oil production and the value of our production. We had introduced a new Energy Sector Levy Act, which today is bringing in almost 9 billion cedis a year. And so there were several things that we had done. We had established a new port at Tema. We had built a new Terminal 3 at our airport. We had expanded the Takoradi port. We had expanded educational infrastructure. We had expanded health infrastructure with district hospitals and regional hospitals. We had expanded access to electricity and water. We had built new markets in many places so that we could improve trade and commerce. And so on that basis, I wanted another term to be able to continue and consolidate what I had done. And that's why I made a statement that I did. But this time, I come back to the job with experience. And I'm going to hit the ground running. And so even though 4 years is short, I believe that in 4 years, we can reset our country. And there are objectives that one wants to achieve. And I say that in 4 years, we can establish a strong fight against corruption. It is possible for a president to do that. I believe that in 4 years, we can begin carrying out constitutional reforms and reviewing our constitution. And that is an objective that I believe I will put myself to and we can achieve in 4 years. In 4 years, we can begin to turn around our economic fortunes and stabilize the economy. I don't say that it will become a land of prosperity, but at least we'll turn around the decline, stabilize the economy, and put it back onto a path of growth. In 4 years, I believe that we can ameliorate and alleviate a lot of the hardship our people are facing currently. Because in stabilizing the economy and stabilizing the currency, we can reduce inflation and reduce some of the hardship that our people are facing. I believe that in 4 years, we can improve our infrastructure. If we implement the big push, we want to put $10 billion over 5 years in infrastructure development. It will include roads, it will include bridges, it will include the essential infrastructure that will make our country run. And I believe that in 4 years, with the implementation of a 24-hour economic policy, we can begin to create more jobs for our people. And so, yes, I think 4 years for the reset objectives that I have mentioned, one can create a turnaround and create a platform for resetting our country and giving it the opportunity to take off. Currently, the prosecution of the Men's Gold chief executive is ongoing, but I think that it should go beyond the investigation. I don't know how far they've gone with identifying the assets of Men's Gold and identifying the holdings, validating the holdings that people had. It is only when you've done that and you know what the quantum involved in that you can make, promises and assurances of how to alleviate the suffering of Ghanaians. A lot of people really suffered under this Men's Gold, and many of our public servants and others who were enticed to put their monies in have suffered because of what has happened. And so when we come, we'll accelerate the prosecution of the person involved, but we'll also go one step further to look at what assets are recoverable and see what the quantum of investments that were made. Some people talk about some amounts of money, but I don't have that validation. It's until we have that validation that we can make an assurance that some restitution can be made.